Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into a Victorian bedroom. Just don't expect it to be cozy. The wallpaper is patterned with vines that look friendlier in daylight, the heavy curtains reek faintly of coal smoke, and the gaslight sputters with that faint hiss that never really lets the room go quiet. You lie there on a stiff mattress stuffed with horsehair, the smell of damp wool blankets pressing close, and your eyes are wide open. Sleep? Not happening. The Victorians knew this problem all too well, and they tried just about everything to fix it. Spoiler alert, you probably won't survive some of their remedies, at least not with your dignity intact. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, while you're at it, post your location and your local time in the comments. I love seeing where in the world you're watching from, and it helps me imagine this little global circle of night owls all tuning in together. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You press your ear against the stillness and realize the Victorians were pioneers in sleeplessness. Their cities were noisier, their schedules harsher, and their anxieties sharper than what had come before. London never truly went dark. Gas lamps flickered through the night, carriage wheels clattered on cobbles, and coal smoke hovered like a restless ghost. Doctors began writing anxiously about insomnia as though it were a new epidemic. Mainstream fact, the term insomnia gained traction in Victorian medical journals, framed as a modern affliction linked to industrial stress and urban life. Suddenly, sleep was no longer just natural. It was a fragile medical necessity that could go wrong. Quirky tidbit. Some guides recommended turning your bed to face north-south to align with the Earth's magnetic currents. Yes, apparently even your compass could double as a sleep aid. Historians still argue whether insomnia genuinely increased in this era, or whether Victorians just talked about it more because medicine was obsessed with classifying every twitch and sneeze. Either way, the result was a whole culture inventing and enduring bizarre bedtime oddities in the hope of drifting off. And tonight, you're going to lie there in the flickering gaslight and witness them all, one peculiar cure at a time. The room smells faintly of boiled milk and vanilla, and you trudge toward the small washstand where a steaming cup waits for you. Warm milk, sometimes sweetened with a spoonful of honey or even a dash of ale, was a staple Victorian sleep aid. You wrap your fingers around the mug, trying not to grimace at the cloying sweetness, and realize that the Victorians had a tendency to blur the line between medicine and comfort food. A mainstream historical fact, physicians often prescribed warm milk with sugar as a sedative for both children and adults. The belief was that milk's tryptophan content could help the brain produce serotonin, promoting calm and eventual sleep. Even Queen Victoria's physicians recommended it for restless nights in the palace. Here's the quirky twist. In some households, the milk was spiced with ingredients that modern taste buds might find alarming. Nutmeg, ground poppy seeds, or even a touch of beer. One advice column suggested that milk boiled with a modest infusion of hops could induce dreams. Imagine sipping that while lying on a horsehair mattress, hoping the combination of cow, spice, and faint alcohol would coax you into slumber. Historians still argue whether these drinks were effective on their own or merely worked through suggestion. Some accounts claim that the real magic came from the ritual itself, the warming, the sipping, the anticipation of rest, rather than the ingredients. You lift the cup to your lips and feel the steam curl into your nostrils, the sweetness clinging to your tongue. In the quiet, you imagine the other rituals of Victorian insomnia: ale and milk alongside carved wooden beds, lavender sachets tucked into pillows, and gas lamps casting long, anxious shadows. The night stretches ahead, and you know this is just the beginning. Even the act of drinking has a kind of lullaby rhythm. Inhale, sip, exhale, repeat. And as you swallow the last drop, you wonder, was it the hops or just the act of trying that helped so many Victorians finally drift into sleep? You'll get to see more of these questionable experiments tonight. But for now, the warm milk is a reminder that even in the oddest times, humans have always sought comfort in simple rituals. The amber glow of the gas lamp flickers as you notice a small bottle sitting on the bedside table. Its label reads laudanum, a mixture of opium and alcohol that was both ubiquitous and dangerous. You pick it up, feeling the chill of the glass, and realize that in Victorian homes, this was just another ordinary sleep aid. A teaspoon might promise dreams, a gentle drift into oblivion. Or sometimes, depending on the night and the dose, a perilous journey you wouldn't survive. A mainstream historical fact, laudanum was widely prescribed in Victorian Britain for insomnia, nervous disorders, and even minor aches. Doctors believed it was safe in measured amounts, and it could be found in almost any household medicine cabinet. Queen Victoria herself reportedly used it for pain relief after childbirth, illustrating how normalized its consumption had become. The quirky, unsettling tidbit: some households even mixed laudanum into children's bedtime drinks, believing the mild opiate effect would help them sleep through temper tantrums or fretful nights. Imagine tiny cups of syrupy opium intended to soothe rather than alarm, an idea that makes modern sensibilities recoil. Other guides recommended counting your heartbeats after a dose to ensure you didn't overshoot your sleep quota. Historians still argue whether Victorian reliance on laudanum genuinely addressed insomnia or simply masked broader societal anxieties. Was it a cure or a convenient anesthetic for a restless, industrializing population? Diaries and letters suggest both. Some people swore by its effect, while others describe foggy mornings and accidental overdoses. You imagine the scene in a dim bedroom, curtains drawn, gaslight flickering, and a figure holding a teaspoon of laudanum, hoping that tonight, at last, they might feel the bliss of uninterrupted sleep. Outside, the streets rumble faintly with late carriages. Inside, the opiate waits to usher the mind into dreamscape, or perhaps just a hazy, forgetful daze. You sense the fine line between relief and risk, and you understand that Victorian insomnia cures were as much about hope as they were about danger. You step closer to the far corner of the bedroom, where a strange contraption hums softly in the gaslight. It's a metal frame with wires coiled around springs, connected to a crank and a tiny bellows. Someone once promised that lying beneath its gentle vibration and buzzing currents would lull you into sleep. You run a finger along the cold metal, imagining the early Victorian tinkers who believed electricity itself could calm a restless mind. A mainstream historical fact, the mid-19th century saw the rise of electrical therapies for nervous disorders, including insomnia. Physicians and inventors experimented with mild shocks and magnetic currents, claiming that the right amount of stimulation could relax muscles, settle the mind, and ease one into slumber. Magazines of the time occasionally featured blueprints for home contraptions designed to deliver these effects. Here's the quirky detail. Some guides suggested placing the device under the bed or tying it around the temples, producing a gentle tingling that supposedly encouraged sleep. One pamphlet cautioned against leaving it on too long, lest you wake with muscles pleasantly electrified, but spirits unduly startled. Children were occasionally included in these experiments, though accounts often note their complaints of ticklish or shocking sensations rather than calm. Historians still argue whether these devices offered any real physiological benefit or if their effects were purely psychological. Some scholars suggest the gentle hum and vibration might have acted as a placebo, comforting the user with a sense of modern technology working in their favor, while others believe that any relief was coincidental or even illusory. You picture a Victorian bedroom lined with strange apparatuses, wires dangling and springs buzzing, gas lamps throwing long shadows over brass frames. The inventor smiles as he demonstrates the contraption to a wary patient. Feel the currents, sleep shall follow. And in the dim corners, the faithful cat or the household dog curls up near the bed, unaffected, as though nature itself is unimpressed by human ingenuity. It's a scene of earnest hope, eccentric invention, and slightly buzzing tension. A world in which technology is supposed to soothe, even when it teeters on absurdity. You glance toward the canopy bed, the heavy curtains drawn tight, and notice a basin of deep red liquid sitting nearby. For some Victorian households, this was not a leftover from dinner. It was the infamous practice of bloodletting, adapted to ease sleepless nights. You shiver at the thought, yet understand that in this era, a little bloodletting was considered as ordinary as brushing your teeth. A mainstream historical fact. Bloodletting had a long history in European medicine and persisted well into the Victorian age. Physicians believed that many ailments, including insomnia and anxiety, were caused by an excess of humors, and removing a bit of blood could restore balance. It wasn't just superstition. Medical texts meticulously recorded veins to target and the quantities considered safe. The quirky eyebrow-raising tidbit. Some household guides suggested using leeches at bedtime, believing their rhythmic sucking would calm both body and mind. Imagine the dim bedroom, gaslight flickering, and a leech poised on your wrist while you try desperately to imagine counting sheep instead. One Victorian advice column even recommended combining a gentle bloodletting with a cup of warm milk to enhance the sedative effect, proving that layering cures was standard practice. historians still argue whether minor bloodletting truly eased insomnia, or if any effect was merely the placebo of ritual and attention. Some diaries describe improved sleep after treatment, while others recount groggy, pale mornings and regretful reflections on the procedure. The truth likely sits somewhere in between, tangled with hope, fear, and the social norms of healthcare at the time. You picture the scene: a servant holding the basin, a physician standing over the bed with careful hands, and the patient lying stiffly, willing themselves to relax. Outside, the city hums faintly with the clatter of carts and distant bells. Inside, the ritual continues, a blend of precision, superstition, and the earnest human desire to conquer the night. And somewhere beneath it all, the patient wonders whether any combination of milk, leeches, or faint hope will finally let them drift into quiet slumber. The scent of vinegar and damp lettuce drifts faintly from a small dish on the bedside table, and you realize you've arrived at one of the stranger Victorian sleep remedies: diet-based cures. Handbooks and domestic guides frequently advised that certain foods, eaten at the right hour, could lull you into slumber faster than any potion or pill. You lean closer, trying to imagine why someone thought a bitter leaf or a sour splash could conquer insomnia. A mainstream historical fact: Victorian physicians often recommended light evening meals for insomniacs, emphasizing easily digestible foods. Lettuce, boiled grains, and mild vegetables were considered optimal because heavy or spiced dishes were believed to overstimulate the digestive system, keeping the mind and body alert long into the night. Even a simple glass of vinegar and water had its advocates, who claimed it calmed the stomach and promoted rest. Here's the quirky twist: some guides recommended combining lettuce with vinegar, sprinkling it with a touch of sugar, or even adding a raw egg, suggesting that the exact combination of bitter, sour, and sweet could create the perfect soporific effect. Housewives were encouraged to experiment, often resulting in dinners that smelled more like chemistry experiments than meals. One Victorian anecdote describes a gentleman grimacing over a sleepy salad while silently mourning his palate. Historians still argue whether these dietary prescriptions had measurable effects on sleep or were largely psychological. Did vinegar actually settle the nerves, or did the careful ritual of preparing a correct bedtime snack provide the mental reassurance that helped people relax? Some diaries hint at both, meals acting as both tonic and ritual, soothing body and mind simultaneously. You picture the domestic scene: a small gaslit kitchen, a lady chopping lettuce with meticulous care, vinegar glinting in a silver bowl, while a sleepy husband hovers nearby, wondering if tonight's salad will finally send him to dreamland. Outside, faint carriage wheels rattle over cobblestones. Inside, a delicate battle plays out between human ingenuity, culinary experimentation, and the stubbornness of sleeplessness. The scene is as absurd as it is earnest, a testament to how far Victorians would go to claim even a few hours of rest. You move toward a polished wooden chair by the fireplace, where a small pendulum swings gently from a metal stand. The room feels strangely hypnotic, the gaslight flickering across the swinging metal, and you realize that some Victorians genuinely believed that mesmerism or hypnotism could cure sleeplessness. Couriers, journalists, and ladies of leisure all experimented with pendulums, feathers, and soft-spoken instructions meant to quiet the restless mind. A mainstream historical fact, mesmerism, popularized in the 18th century and still in vogue in Victorian Britain, was based on the idea that a practitioner could channel animal magnetism to calm nerves, induce relaxation, and in some cases, guide someone into a sleep-like trance. Physicians and enthusiasts held salons where they practiced on willing participants, often claiming to alleviate insomnia, hysteria, or general malaise. The quirky tidbit: some guides instructed patients to fix their gaze on a spinning teacup or follow the motion of a swinging watch, while the hypnotist recited soft, repetitive phrases. One particularly dramatic manual advised that a faint tapping on the forehead could enhance the trance, almost like pressing a sleep button that modern brains might wish actually existed. Children and pets occasionally became unwitting participants, adding confusion, squeaks, and fidgeting that tested the patience of the hypnotist. Historians still argue whether hypnotism genuinely had physiological effects or if the results were mostly suggestive, relying on belief, patience, and a Victorian flair for theatricality. Some diaries boast miraculous nights of deep slumber, while others recount mild drowsiness, interrupted by the sound of ticking clocks and distant street traffic. You imagine a dim bedroom where a well-dressed practitioner hums a low rhythm, swinging a silver pendulum in front of a restless client. Outside, London hums faintly with carriage wheels and distant factory whistles, but inside, the pendulum creates a world of suspended time. You picture the soft sway of the metal, the whispered guidance, and the hopeful gaze of someone desperate for sleep. It's oddly comforting and absurd. The pendulum swings, the gaslight flickers, and the restless mind teeters between skepticism and surrender, caught in a lullaby of Victorian innovation and eccentricity. Your eyes drift to the wardrobe, where a pile of neatly folded nightwear sits next to a small bottle of lavender water. In Victorian culture, what you wore to bed was considered almost as important as the medicine you took. Specialized sleepwear promised to encourage slumber, regulate body temperature, and even soothe the nervous system in ways only a crinoline or cotton nightshirt could understand. A mainstream historical fact, physicians and domestic guides frequently emphasized clothing for insomnia. Cotton and linen were preferred for their breathability, while tight corsets or heavy fabrics were warned against, as they could restrict circulation and make sleep difficult. Nightcaps, long gowns, and layered petticoats were part of the nightly ritual, designed to protect the body from chills while simultaneously adhering to social norms of modesty. The quirky tidbit: some guides went further, prescribing not only fabrics, but colors. Soft pastels like lavender or pale blue were thought to calm the mind, while stripes or bold patterns supposedly stimulated mental activity and delayed sleep. One eccentric manual suggested sprinkling a small amount of lavender water on the nightshirt before slipping into bed, a practice that sometimes made linen damp and skin sticky, but according to its proponents, magical for restless nerves. Historians still argue whether sleepwear significantly affected insomnia, or whether the ritual itself provided psychological comfort. Did the color or fabric genuinely help, or was it the act of preparing for bed, smoothing linens, and donning a carefully chosen garment that coaxed the mind into rest? Accounts suggest it was a combination, with ritual reinforcing belief in the cure. You picture yourself donning these layers, the soft rustle of linen, the faint scent of lavender, and the muffled sounds of London streets beyond the curtains. The combination of fabrics, colors, and aromas creates a cocoon, both physical and mental, wrapping you in Victorian hope that sleep will come. It's comforting, slightly absurd, and unmistakably human. This need to control rest with garments, colors, and scent, proving once again that the line between medicine and ritual is wonderfully blurred. You hear the faint tolling of a distant church bell, and it seems almost deliberate, marking the hours as if to remind the restless that time will pass whether they sleep or not. In Victorian London, religion intertwined with health in subtle and sometimes surprising ways. Insomnia wasn't always a medical issue. It could also be a spiritual one, requiring prayers, psalms, or small nightly rituals to soothe the mind. A mainstream historical fact, clergy often provided guidance for sleepless parishioners, recommending specific prayers, scripture reading, or reciting psalms at particular hours of the night. Manuals instructed readers to focus on gentle, repetitive passages to calm anxious thoughts, similar to modern meditation techniques. Church bells themselves were thought to regulate daily rhythms, serving as auditory markers for both work and rest. The quirky detail, some Victorians tied small bells or chimes to their beds or placed them near windows to ward off bad dreams or summon protective spirits during the night. Others carried tiny prayer books under their pillows, reciting verses while lying in total darkness. One household account describes a maid lightly shaking a small bell each hour to maintain spiritual vigilance, ensuring that the family slept in divine harmony, an early eccentric form of sleep tracking. Historians still argue whether religious interventions genuinely alleviated insomnia or if they merely gave a sense of control over the uncontrollable. Was sleep actually induced by the Psalms, or did the rituals provide psychological reassurance that helped people relax enough to drift off? Both perspectives appear in letters and diaries, leaving room for interpretation. You imagine a quiet bedroom, candles guttering in the corners, a nightcap-clad figure softly whispering prayers, and outside, the distant bells marking the rhythm of the city. The faint vibration of the metal bell in your hand almost seems to sync with your heartbeat. Here, faith and routine intersect in a delicate ballet, offering a curious comfort to the sleepless, a way of surrendering to the night while still exerting some small measure of control. And in that dimly lit hush, you realize that religion, like every other Victorian remedy, was less about the cure itself and more about the human attempt to wrestle serenity from the dark. You find yourself stepping onto a chilly, wind-swept boardwalk, the scent of salt water thick in the air. In the Victorian imagination, fresh sea breezes were not just refreshing, they were medicinal. Insomniacs were often sent to seaside resorts or coastal towns to breathe the curative air, with the promise that the rhythmic sound of waves and the brisk ocean wind could reset sleep patterns and calm frayed nerves. A mainstream historical fact, Victorian physicians widely prescribed trips to the seaside for a range of ailments, including insomnia, nervous disorders, and even mild depression. Coastal towns like Brighton or Margate became hubs for those seeking restorative night air, combined with structured routines, gentle walks, and bathing in the cool waters, all believed to encourage deep sleep. The quirky tidbit: some guides recommended listening to the tides at odd hours, claiming that the precise cadence of waves could synchronize one's own internal clock. Others suggested sprinkling sand on the bed to ground the sleeper, or hanging tiny shells above the headboard to ward off nightmares. One pamphlet suggested that seaweed under the pillow might help lull restless minds, a practice that surely made linen damp and itchy, but was considered worth the discomfort for the promise of slumber. Historians still argue whether these seaside remedies were physiologically effective or primarily psychological. Did ocean air and wave sounds genuinely reset circadian rhythms? Or did the structured environment, change of scenery, and sense of ritual produce the calming effect? Evidence suggests a combination: the physical benefits of exercise and clean air, alongside the comforting notion of following prescribed routines. You picture yourself walking along a misty pier, the sea breeze tugging at your nightgown, the rhythmic splash of waves echoing like a lullaby, the scent of salt, the faint crunch of sand beneath your feet, and the distant cries of gulls create a sensory landscape designed for calm. Even if the sand under your pillow didn't magically cure insomnia, the act of immersing yourself in this ritual, the careful attention to timing, air, and sound, feels deeply restorative. The Victorian coastline, with its odd little superstitions and earnest medical advice, becomes a haven where sleepless minds seek rhythm and reassurance in the elements around them. Back in your gaslit bedroom, you notice a small clock ticking insistently on the mantelpiece. But the Victorians didn't just rely on ordinary timepieces. Some households embraced a variety of noise machines intended to soothe the restless. From ticking mechanisms to water bowls that created gentle splashes, the bedroom became an experimental soundscape designed to lull the mind into calm. A mainstream historical fact: sound therapy was a documented approach to insomnia in the 19th century. Physicians recommended gentle, repetitive auditory stimuli, like metronomic clocks or the low murmur of water, to distract the mind from anxious thoughts. Even the simple rhythmic noise of a ticking clock could establish a comforting temporal pattern that encouraged sleep. The quirky tidbit: some inventors went further, creating elaborate devices that combine dripping water, gears, and tiny bells. One contraption, known as a nocturnal harmonizer, featured a pendulum that tapped a series of chimes at irregular intervals, intended to simulate natural ambient sounds and keep the brain gently engaged. Users reported either deep relaxation or mild irritation, sometimes both in the same night. Children naturally found these machines endlessly fascinating, often staying awake longer just to watch the mechanical ballet unfold. Historians still argue whether these auditory contraptions genuinely induced sleep or if their effectiveness was largely psychological. Some diaries describe miraculous nights of rest, while others complain that the devices kept them awake with mechanical nonsense. Clearly, personal temperament and the subtleties of expectation played as large a role as the sounds themselves. You picture yourself lying under your layers of linen and lace, listening to the faint tick-tock and gentle splashing. The shadows of the room stretch and contract with the flickering gaslight, while the soft, orchestrated noises carve a pocket of calm, even if the sleep machines were ultimately more whimsical than scientific. They reveal the Victorian obsession with controlling every aspect of rest. In this bedroom, sound becomes a tool, an experiment, and a promise that no matter how restless the mind, some pattern, some rhythm, might finally coax you into the elusive embrace of slumber. A small, fizzy bottle sits on the bedside table, catching the gaslight with a soft sparkle. Bedtime tonic waters were all the rage in Victorian homes, marketed as the perfect mixture to calm nerves and soothe the sleepless. You shake the bottle lightly, hearing the gentle hiss as carbonated minerals escape, and wonder how such a sparkling drink could promise peace in the dead of night. A mainstream historical fact: mineral waters and tonics were widely advertised as health aids during the Victorian era. They were believed to promote digestion, relieve stress, and improve sleep by restoring balance to the body's humors. Some tonic waters contained mild botanicals like chamomile or valerian root, ingredients that modern science acknowledges as having gentle, calming properties. Here's the quirky twist. Some bottles were flamboyantly flavored, from cucumber to rosewater, or even infused with a hint of bitter almond. Labels claimed these drinks could soothe the mind and body, but skeptical commentators noted that the real effect might have been more about novelty, ritual, and the simple act of sipping a warm, effervescent beverage before bed. One eccentric guide recommended adding a pinch of powdered gold, yes, gold, to enhance the tonic's dream-inducing qualities. Historians still argue whether mineral and tonic waters genuinely influenced sleep or functioned primarily as comforting rituals. Diaries suggest that the sensory experience, the fizz, the aroma, the cool liquid gliding down the throat, was often more impactful than the ingredients themselves. Some Victorian households swear by these beverages, while others dismiss them as indulgent distractions. You imagine the scene: a nightcap of sparkling tonic in hand, gaslight flickering on the walls, shadows dancing across the curtains. The fizz tingles on your tongue, the scent of herbs rising like a soft whisper, and you can almost feel the meticulous Victorian household settling into its evening ritual. In this world, every sip becomes an act of hope, a tiny rebellion against restlessness. Even if the tonic is mostly psychological, it embodies the era's inventive devotion to conquering insomnia through ritual, taste, and imagination. A stack of worn pamphlets sits in the corner, each one carefully annotated by someone desperate for guidance. Reading before bed was considered one of the gentlest remedies for insomnia, provided the material was sufficiently dull. You pick up a pamphlet and flip the pages slowly, trying to suppress a yawn. Victorian advice columns and domestic guides insisted that the right kind of literature could guide the mind from anxious rumination to a soft, soporific haze. A mainstream historical fact: Doctors and household manuals often recommended reading as a non-pharmacological sleep aid. Passages should be bland, repetitive, or monotonous to distract the mind from stress without stimulating imagination too strongly. Popular suggestions included theological texts, dull legal reports, or long-winded natural histories, which were believed to induce sleepiness by virtue of their tedium. The quirky tidbit. Some guides even prescribed absurdly specific instructions, reading aloud in a whisper, tracing each line with a finger, or alternating pages between two books to avoid mental excitement. One recommendation was to read chapters backwards to confuse the mind just enough to relax it. Some households even had sleep librarians, whose job was to select texts and ensure the reader did not accidentally pick something engaging, like poetry or travelogues, that would ruin the sleep ritual. Historians still argue whether reading as a cure actually helped insomnia, or if the observed effects were mostly psychological. It seems likely that the calming ritual combined with low lighting and the repetitive rhythm of turning pages had more influence than the content itself. Diaries recount people falling asleep halfway through a paragraph or two, often mumbling quotes in their dreams, hinting at the ritual's effectiveness rather than any literary magic. You picture a gaslit bedroom, a faint curl of smoke from a nearby candle, and a figure tracing lines of dull text with a fingertip. The room is still, the city muted outside, and the mind, caught between boredom and focus, begins to soften. It's a delicate balance, just enough engagement to distract, just enough monotony to relax. In the Victorian approach, bedtime literature was as much about discipline and ritual as it was about comfort, a curious blend of intellect, routine, and gentle coercion towards sleep. The shadows of the gas lamps stretch long across the walls, and you notice small pamphlets tacked above the bedside, moral guides warning of the dangers of sleeplessness. Victorians didn't just frame insomnia as a medical problem, they also saw it as a reflection of character. Laziness, moral weakness, or sinful indulgence could all manifest as restless nights, according to these pamphlets. You glance at the admonitions and feel a curious mix of amusement and guilt, imagining the stern faces of distant aunts and pastors silently judging your tossing and turning. A mainstream historical fact, Victorian moralists frequently linked insomnia to poor habits, overindulgence, or a weak constitution. Pamphlets, newspapers, and advice manuals often framed sleeplessness as a sign of moral or spiritual deficiency, recommending repentance, moderation, or stricter daily routines to correct the condition. The message was clear. Your failure to sleep might indicate a failure of character. The quirky detail. Some guides suggested ridiculous preventive measures, like keeping a ledger of sins or reciting moral maxims before bed. One even advised tucking a small wooden cross under the pillow to ward off the temptations that rob rest. Household diaries mention children being read stern admonishments at bedtime to train the soul for sleep. A combination of discipline, superstition, and gentle coercion that modern readers would find both fascinating and bizarre. Historians still argue whether moral framing actually impacted sleep or whether it simply imposed additional stress, making insomnia worse. Some argue the sense of ritual and control helped calm anxious minds, while others suggest that linking sleep to virtue created unnecessary guilt, perpetuating restlessness. You imagine the bedroom as a theater of self-improvement, the bed a stage for personal virtue. Gaslight flickers across printed maxims, shadows stretching over brass bedposts. You lie there, absorbing the moralistic hum, wondering whether the active belief of following these guidelines might finally soothe the racing mind. Even if the pamphlets were more performative than medicinal, they reveal how deeply Victorians intertwined ethics and physiology, creating a world in which sleep was not merely a natural function, but a marker of moral and social order, a curious blend of care, fear, and earnest human hope. You sink into the bed, layers of linen rustling softly around you, and feel the accumulated weight of all the Victorian remedies you've witnessed tonight. From milk and ale to opium, buzzing machines to pendulums, seaside walks to tonic waters, you've traced the elaborate tapestry of human attempts to master the night. Each method reflects not just desperation, but creativity, a remarkable willingness to experiment with body, mind, and ritual in the pursuit of rest. A mainstream historical fact. By the late Victorian era, insomnia had become a recognized medical and social concern, prompting books, lectures, and domestic guides dedicated entirely to sleep. The remedies ranged widely, from chemical interventions like laudanum to behavioral and environmental adjustments like diet, clothing, and light management. Each reflected contemporary understandings of physiology and psychology, however rudimentary by modern standards. The quirky tidbit: some Victorians even practiced synchronized household rituals, ticking clocks, dripping water, recited prayers, and bedtime tonics, all coordinated to form a sleep symphony. Families carefully timed the lights, noises, and scents to orchestrate an ideal environment, blending superstition, science, and performance. One anecdote describes a household where the maid would ring a small bell every half hour to maintain a calming rhythm, creating an oddly hypnotic, if slightly annoying, nightly ritual. Historians still argue whether these remedies had significant physiological effects, or whether their value lay in ritual, belief, and psychological reassurance. Diaries often record that the act of trying itself, preparing tonics, adjusting nightwear, reciting prayers, offered more comfort than the prescribed ingredients or devices. Perhaps the greatest insight here is that insomnia was treated as a problem to be engaged with creatively, earnestly, and sometimes humorously. Now, as you settle under the covers, you sense the layers of history around you, the soft rustle of sheets reminiscent of past linens, the faint flicker of imagination in the mind, the rhythm of human hope repeating through generations. The Victorian quest for sleep, in all its oddity and earnestness, reminds you that rest is both fragile and deeply human, that the mind craves calm, but also ritual, and that even the most peculiar remedies carry the imprint of care and intention. Tonight, as the shadows lengthen and the gaslight dims in your imagination, the restless mind finally begins to soften. The room is quiet, the streets outside muted, and the world of Victorian insomnia slowly fades into the gentle embrace of night. You sink deeper into the mattress, letting each layer of linen press gently against your body, imagining the weight of centuries of sleep rituals resting alongside you. Outside, the city hums faintly, a distant echo of streets that have long since evolved, but whose patterns of restlessness linger. The scent of imagined lavender mingles with the faintly metallic memory of laudanum, while the soft tick of a clock, real or imagined, marks the passage of minutes toward calm. Your eyes trace the shadows, the subtle dance of gaslight fading in your mind's eye, and you feel the slow easing of thought, the gentle unwinding of worry. History whispers here, in the careful measures of tonics, the quiet swing of pendulums, the rustle of nightwear, the ebb of moralistic admonitions. You feel a kinship with those who tried, with sincerity and creativity, to master their nights, acknowledging the limits of control, but embracing the comfort of ritual, the quirky inventions, the odd foods, the softly ringing bells. They are gestures of hope, patience, and human ingenuity. Even if the remedies were imperfect or absurd, the intention matters, the care matters, and the attempt itself soothes in ways the mind understands. As your breathing slows and your heartbeat softens into a gentle rhythm, you let the night wrap around you. Each imagined touch, scent, and sound from that Victorian world blends with your own, creating a tapestry of calm. Rest is fragile, elusive, but tonight it arrives quietly, carried on the wings of curiosity, history, and human perseverance. Allow yourself to drift, to release the day, and to linger in this calm space. Let the past's earnest eccentricities lull you and feel the soft descent into stillness, where sleep comes not as a conquest, but as a gentle companion. End of script. Sweet dreams.